Welcome to another TERF Talk Down Under, a little bit late due to circumstance, but I'm Stassja and this is Ange. Hi, Ange.
Hey. Hi.
It has been a very busy week and a half. I've been flat out, but let's catch up on Senator Chandler's sports bill, because when she first tabled it in the Senate, very little media coverage, I would say zero practically. And then Scott Morrison did some little tour of Tasmania and he was asked directly what he thought. And he said, it's a fantastic bill and he's going to be supporting it.
Yeah.
And that was when the media started to pay attention.
And only in a negative way.
It is just baffling, absolutely baffling. So many negative articles about it. The worst one I saw was an opinion piece in The Age. I can't remember the guy's name, Fitzsimmons or something.
Yeah, a former rugby player, Lisa Wilkinson's husband.
Is he old white guy with white hair? He essentially said it's a non-existent problem. And he was so fucking patronizing and condescending. It was really offensive.
The thing I noticed about all the people that are, commenting on this, they're one from a particular social class, which is, journalists and people with, a fair degree of privilege. And the other thing I noticed was that most of the people reporting on it were from the LGBTQ community, or they were male. So they didn't speak to anyone who could possibly be gender critical. And the couple of women that did report it, I noticed that weren't part of the community, were a lot more objective. They were still leaning towards the other side. But surely people are listening to these people going, oh, women's sport doesn't matter. They're no threat. It's okay if you're, if a middle-aged man undresses in front of teenage girls. Surely people are out there going, this is messed up. Just like they did when, Trump was talking shit, or any of the other politicians. But surely people are waking up. I'm quite sure that people on the left are even waking up because of the corporate capture of this whole thing. I think it was really unfortunate that Morrison, who is incredibly unpopular, even with his own party, doesn't mean he's not going to get back in, because so is the Labor leader. But I thought it was unfortunate that Morrison spoke out right before your forum in Tasmania and potentially frightened away people that may have come there to learn.
Yeah.
And I think, not only did you have to reschedule a couple of times because of COVID, but I think the timing of that, particularly in Tasmania, was unfortunate, because they were able to weaponize Morrison's comment and direct it at your forum. Sorry?
That's interesting, because I viewed it sort of as a boost, like free publicity kind of. But
maybe.
Look, we only got, I'm not sure that we got any articles in the lead up to that forum.
Well, I'm a radical lefty, so I mainly see the left news. I'm not that radical anymore, but I mainly see the lefty news, and I've been blocking a lot of stuff because I can't believe the rubbish that we're reading, and it's gaslighting and it's lies, and there is no balance, none at all. Nobody's ever asked any of us who are publicly out there talking about this stuff and backing up our arguments with facts, or any of the people who I watched the footage of your forum, any of the professionals in the legal world, in psychology, with direct lived experience of detransition. Nobody's asking any of those people. They're only asking people that have drunk the Kool-Aid for their opinion. And our public broadcaster and everyone else in the news who is commenting on this are all signatories to the ACON, you must be positive or you'll be penalised program. So the lack of objectivity is obvious, but the public doesn't know that. They think that, everyone says that trans women are women and trans women have to be in sport. Everyone says that. And I'm not going to go against that, because I'll be a TERF bigot. And so the media's been very sneaky
I don't know. I have been watching it unfold and thinking there's got to be millions of Australians out there watching this and just go, what the media? I don't know if they would criticize the media for it, but they would disagree. They it is injustice. It is such an obvious injustice to have males competing against women. And
unfortunately,
we know that Binary Australia commissioned a poll on how Australians feel about it. The results were 75% of Labor voters are against it, 78% of Liberal voters are against it, and even 55% of Greens voters. So average people reading the paper last week must have just been shaking their head.
Well, not the Greens. Channel 9 also did a similar poll just on Facebook, and 80% of people go, no, it's crap. Yeah. I was going to say, no, gone.
Well, okay. I was very impressed with Nicole Flint's article in The Australian. She did a really good job. She's, I think, a South Australian MP who has recently decided to quit politics due to bullying and sexism, I would say.
Was she from Labor?
And oh God, I can't remember now. Sorry. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah.
She did a really good piece. And then yesterday on ABC Melbourne, so 7/4, I didn't listen to it, but my dad told me about it actually, and I drilled him on it. He said they had an hour-long program at 11 a.m. I can't remember the host's name. And they opened the program with a trans man talking about how she wanted to play sport and how it was no problem to include trans people. Like, completely missing the point. Totally missing the point. And apparently it was just biased the whole way through. And it's sort of like, how can you run a program like that and not invite on, for example, Kath Deves?
Or Senator Chandler.
Yeah.
Or anyone from the gender critical side of things. Speaking of that, I can't really talk much about this, but it's been brought to my attention. You know how we're complaining all the time that nobody has the courage of Maya Forstater here in, Australia or Kiribati or any of that. And until someone is willing to step up and challenge some of these ridiculous conflations of gender and sex, then nothing's going to happen. Well, I've been speaking to somebody, and it's the third person who has told me that they are challenging some of these things in the Human Rights Tribunal and places like that, but that they have had gag orders placed on them so that they cannot speak publicly about what is happening. Now, that is deliberate, because if the public knew what these litigious, serial, litigant trans activists were doing to women, ordinary women, they would be mortified.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty... absolutely outrageous. Like, what is the purpose of a gag order on something like that, other than to just keep it out of the media?
Exactly.
Fucking hell.
Exactly. So I'm pretty sure one of them's going to smash a gag order at some point.
Okay.
And then, it's such an abusive thing to do, because the victim, which is the woman dragged before a tribunal to justify her own existence as a woman and, to defend the very definition of sex, she's denied support because nobody knows about it. Mm. And it's emotionally abusive, as well as an abuse of her financially and an abuse of the system, and it's also really dishonest for the public.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's 3 women that I've spoken to who've been dragged before tribunals of some sort, either within the state or within the whole country, who are subject to gag orders. And it's quite distressing, actually. I'll be next. but I'm not going to stick by mine.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure even Senator Chandler, when she had that vexatious complaint made against her, she was asked to sign a gag order and she refused.
Good.
I'm sure.
Yep. There's a few women now.
Outrageous. Speaking about abuse, you had an eventful weekend, Ange.
Oh, yes, I was a bit miserable this week. Like last week, I was in court with the psychopath who doxed me and has been stalking me for nearly 5 years now, nearly 4.5 years in court. Hello, David. And it's been adjourned again for another 6 months. So the police know the identity of this person, and they're a monster. I'm not going to go into what they've said about me, but it was pretty bad. They're a monster. They're always threatening to, publish stuff about me again and ruin my business and ruin this and destroy me and show people where I live and beat up my brother and, all that crap. And the cops know exactly who they are, but it keeps getting dragged on and on in court. So I was a bit stressed about that. So I had an opportunity to go away to a retreat as part of my involvement with a domestic violence service. I was involved in the foundation of this group because, I've been doing peer support for 23 years and we're in a domestic violence epidemic, and my area particularly has a high rate of domestic violence and there's no services. And there's crisis services, but for women there is no recovery services where you get out of the crisis situation, you finally get a place with your kids, you're trying to give yourself a normal life and you've got no support because all your friends are pissed off because they don't want to get involved. So, it was to try and build that bridge for women to get back into society again, learn how to make friends again, give them space to vent if they're going through family court, all that sort of stuff. So, and we've had a rocky road with COVID and also people leaving and coming to the group. And, it's been a bit of a rocky road. And the retreat was a bit of an opportunity for the people involved in the core of the group to get feedback and take the group to the next level. Now COVID's over, we've got more of an idea of where we can take it. And part of that was to open another group near where I live. And, really positive sort of energies beginning to flow. Anyway, we had a sort of a navel-gazing meeting at the end of the retreat, and a new member came along to the meeting, a person that I don't know, that I've had no interaction with apart from, oh, hi, how are you going? I was told beforehand that this person identifies as non-binary, and the group is specifically for mothers and who are women, right? But they identify as non-binary and they come along to our group. And they opened with, I am a white, autistic, non-binary trans person, and as the most marginalized person, I know there are people in this group who are transphobic and I do not feel safe here. And this person didn't even have the courage to look me in the eye because I knew they were talking about me, because I've got adult human female on my bio on Facebook, and because I'm a Twitter TERF, everyone knows I'm a TERF. I'm not hiding it. Anyway, she was talking about me. Doesn't know me, doesn't know anything about me. And she had her piece and I bit my tongue out of respect for everybody in the group. Then she started talking about critical race theory because she was trying to liken me to racists and homophobes. And I very nearly lost my shit. But I said, I do not believe in critical race theory. It is an ideological viewpoint like a religion. And I don't subscribe to it. And then she went off and on the full victim mode, wouldn't look me in the eye. And then all of a sudden, the group ended and I didn't get an opportunity to speak. I didn't get an opportunity to defend myself. And my friends, who are all, against having men in our group and think that, this gender bullshit is a threat to the very foundation of our group, and that the shitful things that have happened to us over the years are all happening because we're female and we are stuck with our kids and our exes have just gone and done whatever. We've all had those conversations where we're centering each other as women. And my friends in that group all sat there and said, oh yeah, I've had to change my mind about, this, male and female, and recognize what's in between. And, oh, you're always so welcome here. Nobody's ever gonna, make you feel uncomfortable. And we respect your identity. And, if anyone was ever to misgender you, oh, it would be so awful. And they started this bullshit. So I got steam coming out my ears. I'd slept for about 3 hours because all the kids were so rowdy, and, I was freaking livid. Anyway, we went off to the lunchroom after the meeting ended, and I sat down at one table, she sat down over there, and all my fucking friends went and sat with her.
All right.
Because they wanted to be nice and placate the new person. And, and I watched her puff up. Victoria. So she'd gone from this little mouse that had been around the fringe of the group, and I'd participated in the whole thing. I'd been involved with the, everything. Driving people around, doing all the behind the scenes stuff. She didn't participate or just came there for the free holiday, and then centered herself. It was a targeted attack on me as a TERF. And I actually got really upset. Unfortunately, I didn't cry in front of her, but I did cry, and I got seen, because I finally got to see firsthand how they do it. How they infiltrate groups as women, because this is a female, how they infiltrate groups, get into the group conscience, and then flip it against the TERF. I've watched them do it, and I've heard it described by May Forstater and people like that, about how they do it, how they turn a workplace against you, how they turn, your domestic violence group against you, how they turn your colleagues at, if you're a teacher at school against you. I've heard about how they do it, but now I've actually experienced it for myself. And it was really interesting, because I thought my response would be, but my response now is I don't want to ever go back there. And what's going to happen now is that person is toxic, and they are going to bring their friends, because she's already posting, oh, the women's group I'm involved in keeps you, doesn't respect my non-binary identity. So she's already driven the wedge in. And these women have no idea what's coming. They don't see it like I do. I feel like I've got the frigging crystal ball. They stick the wedge in, and then they pry it all open. And, it was astonishing to experience firsthand. Now, that's not the first instance I've had since self-identification has come in where groups have been destroyed, but that previously has been by obvious men. So twice I've walked into different recovery groups, because different in different areas, and had a biological male in the middle of the room, completely destroying the energy in the room and destroying the group ultimately. But I've never had it come from another woman. But the spiel was the same. The way that they divide and conquer was exactly the same. It is exactly like having cult members come into a room full of vulnerable people. And, people who've experienced domestic violence are people pleasers. They don't want to have anyone yelling at them and shaming them. They just want it to stop. They're all traumatized. So they're soft targets. It's so manipulative.
I'm so infuriated listening to this, and I'm really disappointed in those other women that,
I told them too. My friends who were still in there, because some of my friends, one of them actually was really distressed and started crying. I'm quite forgiving of her. She wasn't in a position to speak out because she's from a genuine minority. But I told the others, I said, you're meant to be my friends. You can get fucked. So, and I'll start my own group. I've done it before. When the men invaded another group, I started another one.
You're right.
So, but I don't want to have to. Where's my support, or where's the people there to support me?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not fair. And the fact that she centers herself as the most oppressed person in the room based on my skin color alone, and says that I'm a white middle-class feminist when she knows nothing about me.
Yeah.
So offensive. The way they conflate transphobia with racism.
Yeah.
The way they do it is evil.
Yeah.
Evil.
Yeah. It really is. And the other thing that has really hit home for me over the last week, and also hearing your experience with the group, is just how conditioned women are to be kind, avoid conflict, there was that really good article that you sent me that was going around about why I'm no longer a good girl. It's really apparent. Women are conditioned not to speak their truth. Look, we've got our guest has just joined us, so I'm going to bring her in. We're bringing in Lynne, who was one of the amazing organisers behind the scenes for the Gender Identity in Law Forum that we just held over the weekend. I'll put a link in the description in case you missed it. Lynne, we just need you to switch your audio and video. Oh, here she comes. Lynne did a lot of running around behind the scenes, putting this together, and, you know, look, we all wrote so much volunteer time on this. I'll tell you the story. Originally, the forum was Isla McGregor's idea, who we've had on the show before. And Lynne and a friend of hers agreed to sort of take it on and lead the organising. They did a lot of liaising with the Hobart City Town Hall, trying to get everything happening. I'm now in a position to tell everyone what happened with the security firm. So we had a security firm booked, and we hadn't signed anything. And this guy got a call from his biggest client, who accounted for roughly 90% of his work, got a call saying, if you work at this event, he would be taking his business elsewhere, which would have effectively put this guy out of business. So another couple got involved, a lovely couple from Hobart. The husband had, I can't say names because this could affect people's employment. The husband had been involved in security previously. He'd had security training, so he sort of took on the lead role of liaising with police, liaising with the hall on security issues. And the wife in that couple, she had to ring around to 14 different security firms trying to find someone that would take on the job. Eventually, it was a security firm from Launceston, which is like, I think 4 hours away from Hobart, came in and did the job for us, and we're very grateful for that.
Good on them.
Yeah. Can you hear us, Lynne?
I can, yeah.
Welcome.
Hello.
Hello. So now what do? I just
Pop your camera on.
Are you willing to share your
Hey, there she is.
Oh. Okay, so just checking now.
There you are. Hi.
So it is working, is it?
Yeah, we can hear you. You're a little bit jumpy, but that's okay.
Okay. The reason is because my internet's down at the moment. We've got some major drama with the internet across to Tassie. Some cable broke in Bass Strait. So I'm running this off my mobile coverage, which could be a little bit shaky.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lynne. Thanks for joining us. So, there were a couple of interesting incidents that happened on Saturday at the forum. You got a bird's eye view of the incident with Hobart City Councillor Bill Harvey.
I did, yes.
What happened?
Well, I'd been out the front holding up some of the placards against the throng of the pro-trans protesters that were out the front, and there was just a small group of us trying to hold up placards, which and then we heard the clapping from upstairs, and we were told that it had started, so that we didn't really need to do that anymore. We could just come in and shut the doors. So a group of us sort of turned around, came back in, and before the shut doors could even be shut, there was just a push of protesters through the front door. So of course we were like, whoa, you know, like, excuse me, who are you? Have you got a ticket? Can you please sign in, please? And then, yeah, just kicked off from there. There was just people not wanting to sign in, forcing their way through. I think there was a couple that forced their way up the stairs. And then there was a guy that sort of came towards me really aggressively and, yeah, just said that he wanted to be in the building. And I just said, oh, can you just, have you got a ticket? No, could you just please sign your name, please? And then you can go in, you know, we won't stop you going in. And then, yeah, it all just took off and he got really aggressive and abusive and I stood my ground.
Good.
Yeah.
It's always the men, isn't it? It's always the guys.
Yeah, I mean, it was just ridiculous. He was just really over emotional and I don't know, he'd obviously been out protesting and got all hyped up and yeah, just
the misogyny was flowing, you know, had to have an outlet for it.
he was just acting, yeah. I mean, yeah.
It's really,
it was just silly. Yeah.
Really bad behaviour because he's a city councillor, for God's sake.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, in fact, I would say that I think there was a little bit of verbal jar, you know, sparring. Well, we weren't really saying anything, but there was a few, you know, slanderous things hurled at us from the protesters, but not too much, but there was some. His behaviour was probably the worst out of everyone there on the day. Like a Hobart City Councillor, that is just ridiculous.
Are you going to make an official complaint?
Yeah.
Good.
I think I would.
We're working on it, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
The other complaint that we need to put in, I'm actually going to try and get our money back for the hall hire because what these assholes did, and we're pretty sure, we were told by Hobart City Council employees who were working the event on the day that morning they had received a phone call from, I believe it was the CEO of Hobart City Council, instructing them to raise the fucking trans flags out the front of the town hall, which is just so petty and vindictive and spiteful, but was not part of our contract.
Yeah.
So I believe they've breached the contract by doing that.
We didn't ask for them to bring any flags up. They're going to put up adult, human, female.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Lynne.
And we weren't even being that
Petty. No.
We wouldn't have done that. No.
I saw the protesters, the footage, you know, the stills of the protesters out there, and it was just your typical blue-haired, you know, trans identifying, like it was the renter crowd protesters. There was, you know, people aren't going to really, unless you're part of that ideology, people are going to look at that and just go, oh my goodness, you know. So it wasn't this big, you know, chance for social change that they were looking for. They look like a pack of clowns. And I'm like, you know, I used to be the renter crowd and even I'd be embarrassed by that.
Yeah. I probably wouldn't have known actually if I hadn't been out the front holding up one of the placards, exactly who they were and the fact that so many of them really didn't seem to know even what they were protesting against. Yeah, just hearing what they were saying, it was like, oh my God, they really are a renter crowd of people that have just sort of come along and they have no idea what they're protesting against. No.
It's a cult. It's like a cult and they're just blindly blurting out what they're told to say.
Yeah. So, yes, it was.
Oh no.
She's frozen.
Lynne, you're frozen. I don't know if you can hear us.
Oh, there she is.
Oh, sorry, am I back?
Yep, you're back now.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry, I'm in a bit of a bad mobile area, so I wasn't sure if this would work. But...
Oh, we've had people come from all over the country, including me from up in Queensland. Like we've had Isla on. We've had all different people come from everywhere. So our viewers are used to technical difficulties.
Yeah. saw you doing yours in a tent once, Ange. So.
Yeah, that was me with the snakes outside.
Yeah.
Speaking of technical difficulties, I must say I wouldn't do Zoom again for a live event like that. It was just way too messy. You know, I think we've learned a lot from this one. I think I would have one fewer speakers and instead have some sort of intermission. One of the attendees messaged me afterwards and said it would have been great to have like a tea break in the middle where people can mingle and network and meet each other.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
yeah,
it would have been good to have all that, but we were also, you know, low in funds.
in budget, yeah.
Low in, yeah. So we sort of tried to do what we could with the budget we had.
See, this is a big thing for us here in Australia, is the lack of resources for our argument. Like, you know, we can't do billboards, we can't have events because we aren't yet, because we're so dispersed geographically, we're not yet organised to start the process of, you know, building up these orgs financially or with people.
And you only have to see some of the comments on some of the social media that are, you know, that are, well, groups that are even supposed to be standing up for women and children, to see that how many of the people really don't know what the issues are. The propaganda, as Holly Lawford-Smith was talking about at the forum, has worked really well. It's just all emotion and there's just no sort of intellect involved in any of this. And so people who you would think would be actually going, maybe I should just have a little bit more of a look into this, they don't. They just spout nonsense. And that's what we're up against. We've actually got it's an education campaign almost that we have to start first before we can do anything.
Tell me they don't care. I say, oh, what do you think about the issue of biological males playing sport against females? And they go, oh, look, no, they shouldn't. And I go, yeah. And they go, well, it doesn't really affect me, so I don't care. And it's that simple, you know. And you particularly, you know, unless you've got a daughter or someone who's directly impacted, or like us here in Melbourne, who are directly impacted by self-identification, until it happens to you, you don't really care. People, you know, busy worrying about the pandemic and where their next, you know, paycheck's coming from. But once someone sees the light, you know, I've had people come to me because my Twitter, I don't know why, but people, you know, come to me and they go, oh, I didn't see it before. Why didn't I see it before? And they wake up once they've seen that just tiny little bit, boom. And I think through that forum that you two were so involved in, a lot of people are going to go, whoa, you know, whoa, what's going on here?
Well, I think one of the interesting things was that when Senator Chandler gave her speech, I mean, the keynote speaker at the front end, even she was basically saying, look, you know, I know that there are a lot of people who have helped put this event on and who are never going to vote Liberal, but, you know, I'm still here speaking and they have gone ahead and done this because this issue is so important. This is beyond politics.
Yeah.
And the sad thing that we have at the moment in Australia is that this is just politics. It's just like climate change, how it became left and right. And now this has been polarised into something that should never have been politics in the first place.
But climate change, I've noticed, because I'm a bit of a greenie, I've noticed climate change is not, you know, it's gone out of fashion.
It has. Transgender is the new
thing. So maybe, because climate change affects everybody, transgenderism only really affects women and children at the moment in a negative light. So hopefully this will go the same way as, you know, some of the climate extremism.
Well, we can only hope, but it's going to take a little bit of education and, as you say, I think a little bit more of the impacts to actually hit people personally before
and when people
wake up.
And when they find out where the money's coming from too, that this is not a social justice movement, that this is capitalism. This is greedy organisations fueling money into, you know, not-for-profits and other orgs in order to say trans women are women. You know, there's something really sinister at play that's linked to, you know, donations to the major political parties and things like that. And as soon as that's out in the public knowledge, you know, and it's beginning to happen in the UK. And like I said before to Stassja, you know, we're a little bit behind here in Australia. But if it's beginning to happen over there, there'll be people here that are paying attention, and slowly the ball will roll. Like, I think we're at the beginning of the end, and that's why the screaming is so loud from the other side.
Yeah. Getting back to the flags that Stassja was talking about before, when because I was there early in the morning, and when I was told that they were up, I was sort of a bit like, you know, who cares? But then I saw how it was used against us. It was set up, you know, so that the media would actually get all those shots with the flags, and then all of the people out the front, you know, they'd thought about it. They'd actually, yeah, it was definitely thought about, and that was their strategy. So yeah, now I'm not quite as naive about the visuals as I was before. Now I understand how important the visuals are as well. Yeah.
The photos taken from the Mercury that accompanied that little shit Kenji Sato. They had purposefully angled the camera. I think he was the one taking the photos too. Personally, angled the camera to exclude what we were holding up.
Oh yeah, I was there. I was actually holding one when I saw him taking the photos, and I actually saw him angling his camera, and I was like, oh my God, he's making sure that we're not in the shot.
He's an absolute turd. He contacted Senator Chandler's office regarding her sports bill, and asked her about you know, women are receiving abusive rape and death threats online from trans activists. And he said, is that really happening, or is that just you dog whistling? That's like, I'll never do an article with that turd ever again.
I've got some in my inbox if you'd like them. Rape threats from trans activists. I've got a few. So, you know, if you want some real life examples, I'll just got my phone here. But they don't. They never want examples. They don't want to see any proof. They don't want to listen to the other side. The fact that
even when you post the TERF is a slur.com page for them all to see, they just ignore it.
Yeah.
I said, men, I can understand why they do that. You know, we're brought up in a, you know, patriarchal, misogynistic culture. But when an elected representative who is female just does this to, you know, victims of abuse, to women who have been in prison for, you know, for practically stealing a loaf of bread, you know, for unpaid traffic fines, to, you know, women like of different faiths, of different nationalities, where it's not appropriate for them to have men and women in the same room. When they're doing that to all of those women as elected representatives, why the hell are they allowed to do that? You know, well, one, because people are too afraid to speak up because they're from minorities themselves. But, you know, the fact that they refuse to engage with us when we have, you know, that when it's obvious, it's common sense. Little girls should not be forced to undress, you know, when that middle-aged man playing hockey with them is getting his gear off.
That's it.
It's almost as if the, you know, the elected, female politicians, you know, officials are almost trying to pretend that they're not female. It's like, you're there to represent us, but they're not. It's like they've sort of just pretending that they're not, and then just, I know, it's just insane.
It's common in sorry?
It really does feel like we're modern day suffragettes. It's the similarities are just so obvious.
It's funny because I always thought when I was young and learning about feminism when I was in my teens, when I was at university, I always thought they're a bunch of old hags, right? And they were probably about the age that I am now, you know, which is really funny. It's like, yeah, oh God, you know, I'm like the suffragettes, you know, who they're on their own thrones and they're in their 40s and 50s.
You know, many years ago, I was in Antarctica. I used to work down there. And there was a guy from England who was a geologist who was there, and he was telling me he was really, really proud that his grandmother knew Emily Pankhurst and that she was one of the suffragettes. And at the time I sort of thought, oh, you know, that's cool, but didn't really think that much of it. And now I'm like, wow, you know, now I know why he was proud. Yeah.
I think that history of the suffragette movement needs to be taught in schools. I think if it was being taught in schools, girls and young women would have such a deeper appreciation for, you know, the rights and the freedom that we have. Like, really, this is unprecedented. If you look at the expanse of history, where we are right now in terms of women's rights, despite all the trans shit, there hasn't been a time in history like this. We're so lucky to be here in this time frame, really.
Yeah. I mean, some of those women were force-fed with tubes because they were on hunger strikes in jail, and they were force-fed. I mean,
abuse.
You know, they're not doing that to us now, but hey, they're putting men in prisons and some of them are being raped. Like, really? You know? Yeah, it's just astounding. Did you see the latest video that was put up by a mother of a girl who is a swimmer who was racing against Leah Thomas? I watched that, I think it was yesterday morning, and then I was about to share it, and then it got taken down. And I was like, what? It's just back up now. They've actually been lobbying to try and get it taken down. I mean, that's what we're up against.
Outrageous, absolutely outrageous. I thought I was very happy for Claire Chandler on Saturday. She got such a warm welcome and cheers. It didn't show up in the video because the bloody AV guy, I don't know why, but he like turned down the audio when people were clapping. Like it must have you know, become distorted or something, but that was a shame. But she got such a warm welcome, and she was solely focused on women's rights aspect of the whole transgender nonsense. And later on, she did come for a couple of drinks at a pub where we all met afterwards. And I said to her, oh, you got a really warm welcome. She's like, yeah, after the week I've had, because, you know, she'd been battling frickin' media all week regarding her sports bill. So to just be in a room where everyone's on your side and everyone's supportive, I think that would have made a huge difference to her. Yeah.
She's just had so much flack, and at her and Kath Deves as well have just, well, lots of our speakers, Kath Deves, Holly Lawford-Smith, they've all been absolutely hammered in the press and, you know, by protesters. Yeah,
I know.
It was just great to see them get such applause, and that people actually were, you know, backing them up with what they're saying.
It's funny. I've noticed that quite a few women who are more right-leaning politically or conservative politically have come over to the feminists to work with the RadFems on this issue of sport, and they've kind of found out that we have a lot more in common than they would imagine, and their sort of interest in the other aspects of women's rights activism has kind of come up. Like, they've realised what we're up against.
Well, in Senator Chandler's speech, I mean, she was actually talking about, you know, domestic violence and all the other issues, you know, that women are up against. I mean, if you actually look at some of the stuff she does in the Senate, she's actually doing a lot towards child sexual abuse and all of that sort of stuff. She's been working on that for, you know, ever since she's been in Parliament. So that is her thing. You know, she really is a fighter for women and children.
And it's increasing too, like abuse, domestic violence, child sexual abuse, sexual harassment. Statistically, all of that is increasing. And yet politicians and trans activists want to put more men in women and children's intimate spaces.
It's insane.
It's a form of abuse, and it fits into that thing about that it's a pushback from Me Too. It's like, well, we'll show these women.
And what really annoys me is that the women over there on Destroy the Joint are all happy for all that to happen. They're happy for all these males to be in single-sex spaces and sport when they're supposedly fighting against violence against women.
See, these
are just sense.
Yeah. A lot of those women, you know, Jane Caro and Jane Gilmore and Destroy the Joint and Mad Effing Witches, these are all wealthy middle-class women pretending to be working-class women just because they support Labor. These are not working class or poor women. So it's very, very easy for them to make decisions based on their own self-interest and sell poor and working class women out, the women that actually have to be in these spaces with these men. Yeah. And the only reason why sport is such a hot button issue is because it affects the children of middle class women.
Yeah. And it's not even just those people. What about the Sydney City Council when they had the vote for the legal council? There was, I think, at least 2, if not 3 older lesbians on the council who just completely, they voted against it. I'm like, what is this? It's just in their own interest. Surely they have to understand the impacts.
What was the vote? Sorry?
You know, when they voted as to whether the feminist legal could have their funding, and they said, no, you know, we're kicking you out. Well, there was a number of lesbians on that council who voted against instead of for the Feminist Legal Council. I mean, it's just, they're just acting in their own interests, aren't they? They're not there for women or children. I mean,
there'll be donors involved. There will be donors behind those decisions for sure.
Yeah. But all I can say is those women should be ashamed of themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we're starting to hear of dissent within LGBTQ plus organisations. So someone told me over the last week that they're within Working It Out, which is the Tasmanian, would that be the largest Tasmanian LGBT?
I think so, yes.
They go into schools and do with kids and teachers and stuff. They're disseminators of the bloody ideology. There's dissent within there. A lesbian woman within that organisation has quietly said to gender critical people, I'm fucking sick of the entire focus being on transgender people, to the detriment of gay and lesbian and bisexual people. So that's starting. We've heard rumours of it here in Victorian organisations as well.
LGBT orgs, some of the very prominent ones, they've had a gutful. There's people within those organisations just quietly squirreling away. But once again, funding.
Yeah.
Like
I can attest personally to the stuff that Working It Out teach. My son was at a school that they actually went into, and they were teaching grade 7s things like omnisexual and what are they? All of that stuff. And he was telling me that the kids were outraged on the way home on the bus that evening, that there was a huge discussion about the stuff that they'd been telling them, and most of the kids were angry. So
that's huge.
That's huge. Yeah. And to me, it's like, how are the teachers allowing this to happen? Was there, you know, the teachers in there while they're teaching them this stuff? Probably not, because they're a third party. They assume that they know what they're doing, and the teachers are so busy they're doing other stuff. They're just getting access to children and teaching them garbage, basically. And no one's checking on it.
One of the worst things I read about the impact of all that was I think it was a biology teacher, and I think it was roughly year 7 kids, and there were students in the class who thought that if you were transgender, that meant that you automatically go through the puberty of your gender identity. And she had to go, no, that's not how it works. You would have to go on cross-sex hormones, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's the level of non-reality being taught. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it's terrible. They're just teaching kids.
Oh, frozen. Oh, yeah, go.
Yes, they're just teaching children pure bullshit. There's just no other term for it.
What the hell is an omnisexual?
And the other one was demisexual and omnisexual. Grade 7. That's what, 12, 13, maybe 14 if you're lucky.
I was
most of these children haven't even really reached puberty yet. If they have, they're really on the front end. They just don't need to bring this stuff.
They're old enough to decide to be trans for the rest of their life, of course, according to Transorgs and, Dr. Telfer here in Melbourne. But I was telling my son why I was upset on the weekend about, the group that I'm involved with and this non-binary person's influence. And I was telling him how some people think that it's possible to change from a male into a female. And he said, that's crazy, Mum. That's crazy. And that's it. And he's 11 years old.
My son now goes to a different school, and he was telling me that it's nearly all the girls who are sucked in with this. He said most of the boys really aren't that interested. If he says something to them, they kind of go, oh, yeah, we agree with you. He said there might be 1 or 2 boys at his school that look like they might be a little bit kind of sucked in, and guess what? They're the gay boys.
They're gay, yeah.
And then it's just all girls. All girls. So, as Diana Kenny said in her presentation, we have a social contagion, and it's really, really impacting girls.
Girls are prone to it. Apparently, previous social contagions primarily impact teenage girls, and that's what we're seeing again. Very sad. All right, well, thanks for joining us, Lynne. It's been a really good chat.
No worries.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your hard work behind the scenes for this forum. It was really good. I watched the video yesterday, and well done.
Yeah,
actually, on the sign.
What was that?
On the day, I was sort of busy and I didn't always get to see it, so I watched it last night, the video, and I was like, oh wow, we did a good job.
You did. You did.
It took lots of people and lots of hands in the end to get it up, but we did it.
Yeah.
Would you do it again, Lynne?
Yeah, of course I would.
All right, long session.
Yeah. This is just the beginning, mate. This is just the beginning. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Lynne. We'll keep in touch.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Just need you to click the button.
Oops, stop.
Big hand.
Yeah.
Wow.
Lynne's awesome. Her and the other woman did such a good job. It was such a shame. The other woman, who's Lynne's friend, who I can't name,
was that the blonde lady with the sign?
No, I can't say.
Oh.
She did probably 80% of the work the first time around when we had it scheduled for August, and then this time around, because she's not double vaxxed, she couldn't even come to the bloody event.
Wow.
But then, like a day before or 2 days before the forum, we get word from Hobart City Council that, they're not going to be we don't have to do vaccine checks after all. So I rang her up and I said, you can come. And she had already had other stuff on, and she lives like 4 hours away.
Oh, goodness.
This wasn't going to work. Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people were put off attending in person because of the media coming up to it, because the opposition were quite open about the fact that they would be there protesting in person, and that they were out there to send a message to people that attended. And that's quite intimidating. That's really scary.
Especially knowing what's happened in the UK, but transacted.
What's happened in Melbourne to us last year.
True.
pushed over and thug like freaking union reps getting in our faces, blokes pushing us over, people stealing our signs and trying to rip them up. And guess what? International Women's Day again next week. And guess who's going? And all my friends, because as I left last year, as the police helped us leave because they were scared we were going to get the shit kicked out of us, as we were leaving, I gave them the bird and I yelled out, "See you next year, and I'm bringing all my friends." And so, yeah, we're going again on, is it Tuesday the 8th? Yeah. So we're going to the city and we're going to participate in the International Women's Day things, either with whatever's going on there or without. We may have our own event. But if you would like to be involved and join us, if you're uncomfortable about people sharing your identity, wear a face mask or a pair of sunnies, wear a hat. You will be protected by people who are out in the group. They don't care. They're not going to go around doxing everyone to see, who was that person. They don't care. They just want someone to target their rage at. And myself and a couple of the others are quite happy to have them target their rage at us because we've been through it last year and the year before. So don't worry about, getting doxed and people calling you boss. Come along. There'll be quite a few women and, and it'll be great. And we'll all go and have a coffee afterwards. And I wouldn't be going back year after year if it wasn't fun. And, I'm not going to let people intimidate women out of participating in International Women's Day. I'm just not going to let it happen.
I'll put a link to the Coalition for Biological Reality, the public Facebook page. Just message us there if you aren't in touch already, and we'd love to get 50 women, 50 rad femmes, gender critical women to come. Would be great.
There might already be that many coming.
Excellent. I've got one funny story to share about the protest. Sonia came from Victoria, and so the trans activists were not meant to come onto the steps. That was part of the deal, because it would be blocking access, blah blah blah. And but they tried it on, and they all synchronized and backed up one step at a time to sort of take over our spot with our signage. And this bloody trans activist is standing in front of Sonia and another woman, and he's made his sign out of an old Amazon delivery box. And Sonia's realized, seeing that someone's name and address is still on this delivery box. And so the two, her and the other woman, just started reading out the name and address, and his sign just slowly came back down. What a dick.
So self-doxing.
Yeah.
It's lucky that our side isn't malicious, or he'd be getting some love letters this week. Oh, that's really funny. Oh, that's good. No, see, I'm laughing now. I had such a crappy week, and now I'm laughing. This, because we're talking about this stuff, and we're a group of women getting together for a little yak. It's great.
I've got to say, it makes such a difference meeting people in person. There were people there that I had dealt with a little bit on Facebook, but just to meet in person and know who you're actually talking to when you're on Facebook it makes a huge difference. I strongly encourage women around Australia to find the others, have a little rad femme or gender critical meetup. Especially now when the weather's okay, except for Queensland weather. Pretty serious floods up there, and we're flying up on Thursday.
Yes. So our next TERF talk's coming to you all from Brisbane.
That's right. Yeah. Looking forward to it.
So am I. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. sorry for the belated TERF talk, but we got to it. And we'll try and record on Friday evening.
Yeah, that'd be good. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Have a good week. Bye.